yeah, get the bonnet out of the way and we can see what we're working with. Normally we'd take the bonnet off. They normally just hinge back and lift off on the hinges either side. But these have got some special anti-tampering, anti-theft locks on the hinges, and I ain't playing with those because they're a pig to get back on again. So I'm going to leave them on and just prop the bonnet back as far as I can, which is plenty of room to work. But just put a bit of sponge or foam at the back just to stop the bonnet from catching on the windscreen wipers and damaging the paintwork. So little thing like that, just let's not ruin the paint. So yeah, that's the Td5 engine bay. And when it comes to working on Td5s, there are certain little things that make it easier to add air conditioning. I mean, the 200s, when they first came out, had no aircon in mind whatsoever. So everything's got to be fabricated to fit. The 300s were designed a little bit with aircon in mind, so the brackets for the engine were easier to find. But this one, the Td5 model, was designed fully with aircon as an option. So things like the compressor bracket there, they're all built in. And even on the shrouding here, you can see the shrouding's already there to cover the flywheel on the clutch, on the compressor. The windscreen washer bottle is tucked away under the front wing, which is much better than on the 300s and 200s because they're normally a big square block of a bottle. Right, so let's do this one thing at a time. Let's start off by removing the plugs from the old heater box. Now the top ones are the old heater controls from the dash. That's a 2-speed heater control, so you've got 2 wires controlling the speed, the 2 green ones, and the purple one is, or purple and blue, is the live feed, and then the bottom one is just the plug connectors for the side lights and indicators for the front of the truck, but they're attached to the old heater box here, so it needs to come off. Now it wouldn't be a Land Rover if it was easy, so these are absolute pigs to get off if you don't know how to get them off. They're both off now. As I said, that one, there's a tab that you push in, and then once you've tabbed it in, that just pulls out of that connector. But just to make things a bit more complicated, because why not, the bottom one, which is that one, is a pull up. So you have to get the tab up on this one, not push it down. If you push it down, it never comes off. You have to pull that tab up. They're both the same connector on the same truck, doing the same job, but one's up, one's down, just to make it awkward. So you can see that I've removed this bracket from here that holds the wing in position, gives it some support, and I've also removed the vent top cover from the passenger side wing. Now if you've got checker plate, you might have an issue here because you can't always get to the screws that hold the airbox in position. There's a screw at this side and a screw at this side, and normally they're underneath the checker plate, and it means the checker plate has to come off. Now I've been lucky with this one, I can get to them and remove the screws, but if you can't get to it, it means checker plate off to get to them. There's no other way, I'm afraid. Bit of a pain in the neck, but there you go, that's checker plate for you. Right, so the next bit to do is to take out the old heater box. We'll leave the 2 coolant lines for now, leave them attached, otherwise you end up with coolant everywhere and it's not pleasant to work in. So start by removing the control cable from the top and the side. This top one is goes to the hot cold lever on the dashboard, so it's undo this 8mm bolt which releases the cable and it pulls through its clips and out. We don't need that for the aircon, and similarly Down the side there's another control cable for the airflow from the dash. That needs to come off as well. So those two first, and then there's two bolts on the bulkhead, which on Td5s are normally M10 spanners to get them off. They're normally quite easy to come off those because they've been well protected and shielded from the elements, but the ones underneath tend to be quite difficult to get off. There's one. There are two of those underneath, and they're normally quite badly corroded, so they either snap off or they're quite tight to get off. So in that case you need somebody in the footwell with another spanner just to hold it tight so you can get them off. So that is the heater box all set to come out. Everything's done. Just need to disconnect these two coolant lines and then tie them up here somewhere higher than the engine so she doesn't leak coolant out, and that'll give us space to get the box out. That's it, done. Just walking back with a nice cup of tea. Tea makes everything work better. Always goes better with a cup of tea. Right, so the old heater box is out. There it is. It's the right-hand drive heater box and right-hand drive tunnel, and that gives us space to fit the new HVAC box in its place. Before we do that, what we'll do is work on the water, the heater side of the HVAC, and that means putting a valve into these lines here. We'll do it now rather than later on, because once the HVAC box is in, you're a bit cramped for space. So you can see we've drained off about 3 litres of coolant, which is nice, rather than letting it spill on the floor. So yeah, we can get to it easier now. So that's the pipes a little bit lower down, they've been drained off. At this point I would suggest you take off the air filter cover and tie back the ducting for the air filter. Just gives more space to work in this cramped area here. The top one here is the return pipe that's going back down the engine. So that's the outlet from the HVAC, so you can follow that round up to here. So that's the outlet, so that's the top pipe on the new heater box, on the new HVAC, and this one obviously is the inlet, so that's the one to the left of the two pipes. So we're going to put a valve in here somewhere in this line, which is why it's easier to do it with the HVAC box out, because you're a bit cramped for space otherwise. So there's the water pipes connected up as discussed before. So that's your top one is your outlet back to the engine, so there's a bleed screw on there for any air to be released, and the bottom one, the inlet, has got the valve on it for controlling the flow. So whether you're going to have electric valve or brass valve, that fits in the same position. So if you're fitting the mechanical brass valve, which is on this one, just make sure that your cable's adjusted on these two clips in such a way that that valve is fully closed, levers fully forward, when the dial on the dashboard shows heater off. If you adjust it wrong and it's only somewhere like that, what you'll find is that hot water will flow into the HVAC unit all the time, and then your AC won't work. There'll be a heater conflict all the time. At this point we need to cut the air inlet into the passenger side footwell. So in your instructions you'll get a template sheet. This is obviously a right hand drive one, and as it says on the top, align the arrows with the two bulkhead fixing positions, so they're at the top here, ones that came out. It's about lining those two arrows up with the two bolts and with the bottom front edge, and that gives you a rectangular template in the middle to cut out. So drill 4 corners and then jigsaw. Much better than angle grinder because you get sparks flying everywhere. It's not a great idea, so jigsaw that out That gives you your air inlet for the AC. So that's the whole cut with the soundproofing around it and the inset screen to protect it from debris. So we'll move back into the engine bay again, and the HVAC box is in. Always a good sign. Not fully in yet, not wired up, not clamped down, not plumbed in, but physically in its position, which is good to see. Plenty of room to work. Plenty of space down this near side for wires and pipes. So that's how she looks. So this is in the passenger side footwell, and what we need to do here is put 2 anchor bolts in. So we need to drill here and across on the other side, one on either side, about a 5mm hole through the bulkhead, and then switch to a 3.5 or 4mm drill bit to drill through the base of the box, and you can then clamp the box down solid. So then just cut a hole in the carpet in line with the aperture, put the carpet back in its place, and that's the interior side done. Now we've put the dryer bottle on the back of the HVAC unit here because you've got space to do that with the Td5. There's no awkward washer bottle or any other pipes in the way here. As you get with the earlier models, it's just much more thought out. Washer bottles at the front, so you can mount it there, and it just makes it look a bit more factory, a bit more thought out, a bit more as it should be. Just bear in mind that the dryer bottle is directional, so it flows across from left to right on this one. There's an arrow on the bottle for ease of installation, and also bear in mind that these screws should be very, very short so you don't go into the blower area on the inside. But apart from that, that's looking good. We just need to get the thermostat wired in, and then we'll put the pressure switch on top here, wire that into the circuit, and yeah, keep going, looking good. So next up is to fit the compressor, which goes onto that cradle there with the 4 bolt holes. If your truck's not had AC before, those holes can be full of all sorts of rubbish, 20 years worth of driving, oil, grime, dust. So I'll give them a clean out first, and take this shroud off at the front. So there's 2 screws at either side. Right, so to get the fan belt off, you have to put a 15mm socket onto the end of a long cracker bar and ease that jockey wheel back to release the tension. I'll let Sonia do that for 2 reasons. 1, I can hold the camera, and 2, I value my knuckles more than his. So that's the belt off. Maybe you can see that pulley a little bit easier with the belt off. It's that one in the middle there. So 15mm socket, pry bar, that's your tensioner wheel. So that's the compressor mounted into its cradle with the 4 bolts, 1 at each corner to hold it down. With the belt back on again, the specific aircon belt for this. Just check your clearance on this EGR pipe. Sometimes it catches, you have to push that pipe up a little bit just for clearance. It just sometimes just nips the edge of the belt. And also on here you've got a self-grounding earth wire, so when you bolt it down onto the engine it grounds itself, so no need for a separate earth wire on this. Now with the Td5 you need the aircon extension grill to fit the condenser, so this has got one on already luckily, which is nice. So with the grill off we can see now the space available. This one's got a live tuning intercooler on it, which is very nice. Nice piece of kit, but we're looking here at these two cross members, that one and that one, which holds the striker plate in position at the top. So we put the condenser against that frame, locate the number 6 connector and number 8 connector, make sure there's space to get the fittings on, and then drill through and mount the condenser. Right, so that's the condenser radiator and the fan fitted to the front on the striker plate bars, one either side, and you'll see that we've put some diagonal markings on the radiator either side, one down here and one across here. That's to give us a guide for putting foam behind in a diagonal line, so there's a barrier between the radiator and the actual striker plate bars. It just helps with load shock, but also with corrosion, metal on aluminium. Main consideration is to get it nice and level, but obviously leave yourself space for the fittings, the 8 at the top and 6 at the bottom. For a Td5 you'd put the radiator this way around as it is in this picture. For a 300 or a 200 or an EFI or a BM, you might want to turn the radiator around and put the fittings at that side, closer to the actual compressor location. But for a Td5, that's how it goes. Let's just visually look at the wires on the actual HVAC unit. So there are 6 wires in total that come out of the side of the box. The 3 colourful wires, yellow, red and orange, they're the 3 speed lines for the blower. So yellow is low, red is medium, orange is high. There are 2 green wires that come out the side, they're for the thermostat control. We'll do that in a minute. And the 6th wire is the earth that comes out and just be earthed somewhere like that, somewhere convenient. It's fairly easy to follow. There's a standalone wiring diagram on page 11 of the booklet and some notes on page 12 to help with the wiring itself. The first thing we have is a 20 amp ignition line into pin B on the blower control. This is the blower control here, 5-pin blower control, and whether you go for the small control knob or the larger dial, it's the same actual 5-pin layout on both, so that's easy. So pin B is the power in, so you can take a 20 amp line in from somewhere onto pin B to power the blower control. Then there's a low, medium and high speed outlines which go to the blower itself in the engine bay, and then pin C is the power out. So the actual switch on the dashboard, the AC switch, is powered from pin C on the blower control. Pin C only goes live when the blower's on. It's a safety feature so that you can't run the AC without airflow. So just to bring all that together, ignore the main wiring in here. It's a bit of a work in progress, shall we say. But here's the actual blower control that we mentioned from the bench. It's a 5-pin blower control. So there is your 20 amp ignition feed with a 20 amp fuse in line that goes to pin B. Yellow, red, orange is low, medium and high, and then the white wire on this one is pin C, which is the power out, and that powers the AC switch. So that's all done, and then what happens then is that the power out from this is the green wire, goes back out into the bulkhead, and we'll start wiring in the thermostat with that green wire. But just to demonstrate how this now works, if we put the ignition on and try to operate AC with the ignition on, nothing happens because the blower needs to be on. So you turn the blower on, low, medium, high. So the blower's on, the AC switch goes live, but with no blower, no AC. And that's just to protect the core from freezing solid with no airflow. Right, so we're following the wiring now from the dash. So there's the green wire from the AC switch, so when that's turned on, that energizes, goes live, and that flows down and joins one of the green wires on the thermostat. Doesn't matter which one, so green to green, just there, the connection's made there. And then the other wire that comes out, the second green thermostat wire, goes on to the green black on the pressure switch, and the second green black comes out and goes on to energize the relays for the compressor and the condenser radiator. Now, one thing you can do at this stage is, rather than running two new lines to the compressor and the condenser radiator fan, is you can tap into this now redundant heater line from the old heater box. The lower purple line there is a 12 volt positive on ignition. You can use that to power the relays rather than running two new lines. If you're going to do that though, I suggest you just take out fuse number 16, the 20 amp, and put a 25 amp instead. Now, one thing that we do get asked about from time to time is about the pressure switch itself, because on the top of the switch there are 4 lines. There are 2 green black wires, which we use in our circuit, and 2 blue ones, which we don't use. So people often ask, what are the blue ones for? Why don't you use them? The blue lines are there to trigger the condenser fan when the system reaches a high pressure, sort of critical high pressure. The fan kicks in and brings the pressures back down again. It works fine in principle. People often use those blue lines, and you can use them if you want to do, but we prefer to wire the condenser fan and the compressor on the same line, so that when the compressor's on, the condenser fan is also on, and it just stops the peaks and troughs, because a high pressure system is not great and neither is a low pressure, so you want to have it running at the same time. So to have the compressor and the condenser fan running at the same time creates a very level pressure system and much more efficient in cooling. So if blower's on, temperature's good, pressure's good, it will feed on to trigger the relays. And I've put the relays under here, nice and tidy under the side wing. That controls the triggering for the compressor itself and also the condenser fan. So we've now got all of the main components installed into this truck. We've got the HVAC box fitted, dry bottle on the back. We've done the water side connections. Most of the wiring's complete. The compressor's on, the belt's on, the condenser's on, and the fan's on. So once you get to that stage, that's the time to start laying out your hoses and cutting and crimping. You've got your basic layout now sorted out. So you're supplied with different lengths of hoses. On the AC side, you'll get lengths of 6, 8 and 10, small, medium and large hose. And it's a case of laying them out based on your configuration. Once you're happy, you cut them and crimp them and attach them on. Now this one, with it being a right-hand drive, means that the compressor to HVAC box is quite a short pipe, so you won't need very much number 10. But on a left-hand drive, it will be in the far corner over there. So you need more number 10 pipe to run around the back of the engine up to the compressor that way. So each one's different. You supply with different lengths of hose and crimp fittings. It's about laying it all out and finding what works for you. So let's just do a quick visual walkthrough of the pipe system on this. It starts off at the number 8 line on the compressor, the smaller of the 2 lines. On the Td5 you have a little pad adapter here which adapts the fittings from pad to O-ring. Ours are all O-ring fittings on the pipes and fittings. We find them better for servicing. So number 8 runs from here down to the radiator in front, to the top fitting on the radiator, just there. And that's the only piece of number 8 you need, just a small run of number 8 from the compressor to the top of the rad. That then condenses everything down in the bottom to the number 6 line, and the 6th line runs back up along the chassis rail, or wherever you can route it. There it is. And in this case comes up onto the dryer bottle on the left hand side. And again, this is directional, make sure you get the bottle the right way around. So in there, through the bottle, out here, this is the high pressure charge point. So this is still high pressure system here. Loops round and goes into the box on this line, and then it hits the expansion valve inside and changes from high pressure hot to low pressure cold, and then comes out of the bottom line, which is the number 10 port. Under the wing, there's the low pressure charge point. Blue is low pressure, red is high pressure, and that then continues on to the top of the compressor. And this side will be cold, this side won't be cold. So when it's running nicely and efficiently, this side frosts over to show that the system's working properly. Now, in order to get good professional fittings on all your pipes, it's important to use the correct tool. So we would recommend that you use this type of crimping machine. You can buy it from us, or you can hire a set, maybe borrow a set from a colleague, but using the correct tools at this point is really important, because you don't want pipes flying off under high pressure. Some hydraulic crimping machines will not hold AC lines. This is a proper AC crimping tool with all the dies for handling 6, 8 and 10 pipes. Right, just one final thing to be aware of with the Td5 compressor. I mentioned about these pad adapters on the bottom of the compressor fitting. They convert from pad to O-ring, but they're quite chunky, they're quite thick in design, and they do raise these compressor fittings up a little bit higher than standard, which can cause an issue with bonnet clearance on a few models. So whether you're left-hand drive or right-hand drive, we suggest that you put the pipe fittings like that to come out towards this side of the bonnet, and if you need to push them down slightly for clearance, you can do. What you can't do is turn them around and run the pipes that way for a left-hand drive truck, otherwise this becomes too high for the bonnet. You can push those down a little bit, they're quite pliable, and that just gives you the clearance you need. So at this point, everything's done. It just needs gassing up now. The mechanical parts are all fitted. The electrical parts are all wired in. Pipes are all fitted and crimped correctly. So yeah, we'll just put a nitrogen test on there next to check all the pipes under high pressure, and then a vacuum test, and then we'll add the gas. There's a separate YouTube video about how to gas these things up, so I won't go into it again here. I'll just put a link at the bottom. But that's the next stage. I'll leave off the engine cover and shroud and grille just in case we have an issue with something, but I don't think we will. It's gone together nice with this one. So she's fully gassed up, working perfectly. The compressor's engaging in and out, it should do. That's working on the thermostat, so when it gets to a core temperature of about 1 degree, it will disengage the clutch. There you go, back in again. Clutch and fan work together. And then, as I mentioned before, this top number 10 line, ice cold line, that one. That's the low pressure line, so you can see again Ice forming under the low pressure line. All working perfectly well. So with everything tested and checked, it's time to say goodbye to this one. She's done. Final few jobs to do in the engine bay, just tidying up the wiring at the back for the blower loom, replacing the wing top vent. We've added a blanking plate underneath just to hide the relays and give them some sort of protection from the elements. Engine cover back on again. We replaced the shroud on the front that also hides the pulley on the compressor, and the front grille back on again. So yeah, all done. Nice project worked on, and yeah, I've enjoyed this one. Yes, this is a Td5, yes, it's a right-hand drive, but the principles of our AC system are the same whatever truck you put them into. It's about putting the box in, putting the compressor on, putting the radiator on, and then once you've done all that, laying your pipes out, cutting, crimping, gassing, and enjoy.